All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm talking with our newest facilitator, Veronica Stewart, all the way from sunny Florida, which is far away from the frozen tundra where I live in Canada. Hey, how's it going?
It's going great over here. It's all hot and steamy already for the summer.
Right on, right on. And there's another facilitator, Ken, in Florida as well. And I'm an Edmonton Oiler fan. And if anybody follows, yes, because it's Canada, I watch hockey, and it's Florida versus Edmonton in the final. So we're gonna have to do a side bet between the three of us or something, like a jersey swap or something on LinkedIn if the other team ends up winning the Stanley Cup, which starts this Saturday.
There must be something in the water here with all the Florida crew with the lean change, right?
Yeah, yeah. Cool. So tell the audience a little bit about yourself, because I know you've been involved in the Agile community for quite some time.
Yeah. Long story short, I drank the Agile Kool-Aid a long time ago. It's probably going on almost 20 years from the first time that I came across Agile. Like most, different roles, different things throughout the journey, and then eventually got into help coaching in what wasn't even called transformations back then, and then finally it became a buzzword. And then working more of, okay, what do we do when we have a team and we start to look beyond and grow it with the organization, which now they call agile transformations, enterprise agile coach, etc. For me, what started to make sense, especially when we had the birth of Scaled Agile with Safe and these arts where they're pretty heavy, pretty intense, a lot of change that's happening. And it was introduced to me on an engagement and ended up going through the classes and applying it immediately. And what I found was it really brought some clarity for the leadership that was embarking on this journey, getting them to kind of really think about what is happening now and the pains that they're trying to solve for, and then looking beyond in the future and really hashing that out with each other before we went on this adventure. And part of that too, because you already have frameworks that you use in Agile, it was a very natural way to integrate it without it feeling like a third arm. And that's what I loved about it, is that it was seamless. It made sense. Oh, wait a minute. We want to talk about this. We want to co-create. We want to do this together. We need a system that is actually going to allow us to break it up and evaluate what we're doing. So it was a very natural flow. My first experience was with launching arts, and I've done several of them with that, where we integrate it in PI plannings and Scrum. I have done it even beyond that in other engagements as a way to get started on an engagement as a Agile consultant. So instead of just doing your simple what your success criteria, it's really getting them to say, okay, here, this is part of the process as we are going to learn new ways of working. I've done it in just simple like Scrum, Kanban, departments that weren't really into scaling, or I've even done it in marketing departments as well. So for me, it's been a natural thing to solve the conundrum that I see out there when it comes to change skills. For me, I think we're closing the gap between the change management community and the Agile community of saying, hey, what does that look like when it comes to new ways of working and culture shaping for adaptive cultures? And you have the factions of the house kind of going in the process side of things. And then you have the change management side saying, hey, wait a minute, we got to bring the people along, where we both know that we're trying to do the same thing, but coming at it in different ways.
Oh, okay. Because I think you took the course like in 2017-ish or something like that, right? The
Yeah,
the lean
it was
change course.
before
Yeah.
you were with Happy Melly.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess you could put I'm a seasoned veteran, which everybody likes to put at the end of their LinkedIn profiles. Uh,
Yeah.
I've never liked the seasoned word. It's always kind of weird.
You know, it's funny because when you use AI and you're trying to, I change my headline all the time because I'm like, what do I want to say up there?
Yeah.
And I will use the AI, and there are two things that I'm constantly playing around, and one is that season and the word expert.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't see myself an expert, but it's funny how people like that word.
Yes.
And so I'm always trying to it's a dance in my head of what people want to hear and see
Mhm.
versus how I personally think about
Yeah.
those.
Yeah. Cool. Cool. Because I think we have pretty similar backgrounds as far as having like a leg in each camp in the agile and the change communities. So it's kind of cool. I like that you mentioned around there's more merging around the communities where the traditional change people are looking at agile and like, hey, that's cool. We should start doing that. And then the agile people are like, after 20 years, we've realized this has nothing to do with agile and everything to do with change. And they're starting to
Yeah.
kind of poke around in the other community. Do you want to say a little bit about what prompted you to become a facilitator and maybe some of those patterns that you've seen about how
Yeah.
the two communities are starting to do the tango?
Yeah, for me, it's a multiple things, and I'll break that down a little bit. Is there comes a point in, most of us, I think that we're having an identity crisis out there. You can probably see it on LinkedIn with agile coaching and what that really looks like as we evolve, right? It's been around for a while, and as we know, if we're modeling our own behaviors, things change and evolve, and why shouldn't we as well, right? And part of that, of the dabbling that I did back then, and I shared a couple stories of how I use Lean Change, it started to make sense to me going, how many other people really truly have change skills in all the different varies of the agile space? And so that was one dimension that I was looking at. So for example, when I was a director of agile practices, I had scrum masters, I had delivery leads, reporting into me. It was more about, hey, how do we teach Scrum? How do I be a Scrum master? But they're at the mecca of change. And are we developing and helping them with change skills, right? You think of even product owners, it's not necessarily in the courses of they own the backlog, they owned, the direction of what people will focus on. What about that? What's their role in that? And then we can keep talking about all these, type of agile roles that are out there today. It's not inherent to teach this. And so that's what made me interested on the agile space. Now, if I look on the other spectrum of what's happening in the change management space, you know that in Slack, I'm always like, I'm researching this, I'm looking at this. And even in our conversation today that we had for new lean change facilitators from South Africa, they are coming from in the change space, but are new to agile. And I see it a lot in the chatter where you have all these change management consultants trying to rationalize and understand what it really means to work in the agile space, or just even the word agile itself. If you look at Agile Alliance and you would say, what's the definition of agile? It actually talks about change in its verbiage there, which I think is quite fascinating, right? And so you have in the change management community, trying to understand change agility. How do we coach to that? ICF is actually starting to participate there, which they have also been embedded in the agile space. That's a whole other conundrum too, where most people don't even know, even in the ICF, they're in the agile space, and now they're getting into the change management space, right? In those roles. So for being a lean change management, where I got interested is because I'm spending time in both worlds, is what would it look like if we are playing that dance, as I call it, of helping those that already are in this agile world understand what it means to change in their involvement in it, in their role in developing those change skills. And then those in the change management space that have been focusing on their change skills is expanding it out in the essence of what really makes and creates adaptive cultures, right? In the sense of agility. So that's kind of where I felt lean change management was almost that bridge that brings it all together, that it can make sense in both these worlds.
Oh, cool, cool. Yeah, I see similar patterns where it seems both communities want the same things, they just express themselves differently.
Yeah.
And when you get the two of them together talking, they're just like, oh, I think we're a lot more similar than we are different. There's their perception that agile is so disruptive, and when it gets brought in, it breaks our companies. And then the agile folks are more like, well, you guys just keep following the same standard processes and you need to change that. And then the change people are like, well, you should change and not be so disruptive. But once you get past the noise, they're like, we just want to help people be awesome and companies to be great. Like that's it. We
Yeah.
want the same things.
And also the misnomer of what even Agile is. They think it's a process or it's help for software delivery or that kind of a delivery mechanism
Yeah.
where there is some truth to that, but that's where the frameworks come in versus what, the values and principles and ultimately it was to provide, right? And then when you
Yep.
start looking at it more at scale of what would create that in your way of thinking and behaviors, right? What we know and what we're hitting kind of the wall right now is that all the processes in the world, it's not going to make a difference if we're not changing the way we think and behave around them, right?
Right.
The system is designed as intended. You're going to get the same result. The same thing is happening in the change management space, which they're realizing as well. That's what I find fascinating is, when we talk about getting to the Gemba, I actually am. I'm getting to the Gemba, going over and hanging out with the ACMP folks and also with Agile folks. And it's been you've been doing this for years before I started. It's been enlightening. Where it's almost like design thinking in itself. I'm modeling the behavior and going in and learning about their world
Cool.
and seeing how they think about it.
Yeah.
Because a lot in the chats that I'm seeing in the ACMP, you have folks, and I know for a fact that there's companies out there that are going through some kind of Agile journey and adoption. There is probably a sea of Agile coaches, and these change agents are somewhere else in the company, and they're not collaborating at this moment.
Mhm.
It amazes me.
Yeah. Yeah. So, if you think about how, uh, I guess traditional change folks could start to latch on and use some lean change ideas, what would be a couple of nuggets of advice you would offer to them as we get into the wrap up?
That's a good question. So if I probably take what I've learned so far is that the ramp up time of putting something into action can be accelerated by one thing that I just mentioned already is through collaboration for others that might already be doing it. So I actually said this in one of the threads is, hey, do you know that most of us Agile folks get into design thinking? We're working a lot in those aspects. It's not just Agile, what we do. There's a lot more to it. And also a lot of them are even ICF coaches. Have you ever thought about maybe joining forces to accelerate some of the things that you're trying to figure out and noodle with? That's one. Two is what I'm starting to see as well is the ability to qualify and quantify the success of a change. And you see both groups looking to rationalize this, right? There's even a consulting company called Change Decision that even just teaches change metrics, right? And I see that a lot out there. I see the combination of design thinking and metrics conversations in the change management world. Ironically, I see kind of the same thing happening in the Agile space as well. And so there's a huge opportunity in that area is to say, what about that, right? And the ultimate conversation around business outcomes, right? If you're helping a business, well, how does that all connect to it at the end of the day, right? How are you helping a company? And what does that look like when you're talking to different levels of the organization and what they care about, right? We do know that the change management group is still having a hard time coming along. Their surveys come out, the Agile surveys come out, and what's the number one thing is the leadership and how they perceive. Most of the time, you think of change management, they're even trying to change their identity and their names around, are we guiding or are we really leading it? And is it really a project? And so I think there's a lot of opportunity on the aspect of how we qualify and quantify what success is when it comes to the change and how we're enabling it. And then also that design thinking, taking some of those practices because it's really, the employee experience at the end of the day is what we're focusing on. And using some of those product thinking and design thinking skill sets Hope I answered the question and maybe a little bit more.
Cool. Yeah, I think there was more than a couple of good nuggets in there. So that, yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Um, tell folks where they can find out, where they can connect with you and find out a little bit more about what you've got going on.
Yeah. So right now I've been in the works of going, okay, what about this? When it comes to the stuff that I've been noodling, I feel like I'm a little bit of a Ken as well. Um, and and for me, you can find me. I'm always on LinkedIn. I'm definitely on there. I'm kind of subsided, but I'm highly engaged. I usually post a lot of things. So I would definitely say connect with me on LinkedIn. Connect, follow. I am always there talking to people, learning, and seeing what's going on in the world. I'm also, if you're in Florida, I participate a lot in a lot of the local communities here. I live in Tampa Bay, so I engage in the local South Florida change management group, and then also with the Tampa Bay Agile. Also, I just moved from South Florida, so I collaborate with a lot of folks down there as well in their communities.
All right, right on. And that will all be in the show notes below. So if you're checking this out on Lean Change TV, all the links and stuff will be down in the notes below. So thanks for taking the time to chat today. Welcome to the global community of facilitators. Woo. And I'll put some fun stuff in post. So there's like confetti and stuff going on. And
I look forward to it and look forward to where we can take it in 2024 and beyond. Some good
right
things
on.
to come, I believe.
All right. Thanks a lot.